Well, thank you for that introduction, Pete, and no pressure now at all. I don't know how I've managed to convince you I'm intelligent, but I'm quite impressed that I have. I will definitely take that. I'm very good at pretending now. I'm Helen Joy, and my business is People Spark. It's been going for 8 years now, which is quite scary, but only as People Spark since the middle of the first lockdown, because I was in the middle of a rebrand when that happened. And my background is I've spent 15 years in the recruitment industry and 20 years in learning and development. Now, they did overlap. I'm not actually that old. They did overlap, those two. So for me, it is about working with businesses and making sure that they, get the right people in to the business. And then once they've got the right people in, that they treat them in the right way to ensure that they thrive, that they get the very best out of those individuals, that everybody in the organisation is in a position and understanding of what is the purpose of the business. Where does that fit with their personal purpose? Where do those two combine to create that magic and that alchemy that gives you that culture that is absolutely just a pot of bubbling energy and innovation and creativity and all of those things. And that is my dream, is that every business that I go in and work with, being able to motivate and inspire everybody in that business to look at their role and how they bring to that role what that business needs to make everybody have all the resources and all the support that they need to be their absolute very best. And for me, that starts with recruitment. I don't recruit. So James, I think it'd be great for us to have a chat, actually, because I feel very passionately about that. And what I'd like to do is work with people before they recruit, before they talk to people like James, because that is where it is. I meant to start my timer, and I think I've got, because
Don't worry, mate. You're all good.
I will possibly talk for a while. You'll have to shut me up. Oh, where's that gone? No, I don't want to do that. Right. No, what am I doing? Right. Can you still see my screen?
We can see your screen. Don't worry.
Okay. Something weird just happened over there that I really shouldn't be doing. Right. Okay. I do this for a living, honestly, believe it or not. Okay. So today, what I'm going to focus on, what I'm going to talk about is, I can get this to actually move. Just 3 key things. This is, I remember from Kelly doing hers, that 3 key points, which was really too nice and concise. First thing is how to tell if you actually need to recruit or not. Now, we could talk about this for hours as well, so I'm going to try and be concise about these things. Then we're going to look at, once you've decided that yes, recruitment is for you, that's the next step, is how do you actually identify what you recruit for? And this is where so many organisations, especially small businesses, go wrong, because they don't do enough at this stage to make sure that they're getting the right person on board. They go rushing straight into, I've made the decision, I'm going to recruit somebody, and they crack on with it. And actually this bit is where more time needs to be spent in order to make sure that you're making the right recruitment decision. And then the final thing we're going to look at is how to make sure you ask the right questions. Now, that is quite a lot to get through. So we might only touch, we might not go into kind of detailed particular areas you want to, but I'm always happy to chat to people afterwards if anybody's got any other questions. Okay, so these are the kind of 5 key areas that indicate whether you're at that point where you need to bring someone else into your business. And the first thing is, are you stuck? Have you found that you are working really, really hard? You are spending all the hours God sends and you are not getting any further forward? Are you finding that you're running out of ideas? You're running out of creativity? You're not quite sure where to go next because you've got stuck. And that's really, really, it's much easier to do when it's just you. And it doesn't matter how amazing your support group is. It doesn't matter how great your business coach is or the people that support you. There's physically only so much you can do because you can't get any further forward. Is that making you get frustrated? Can you tell that your customers are starting to get frustrated? Because you might be being late with things, you're juggling too many customers. Your customers are kind of giving you a nudge to go, I'm just waiting for such and such. When are you going to get to me with that? Can we? And they're lovely and they're great. And they're always kind of, don't worry, it's fine. But there is a limit to how long businesses will actually keep going with, yeah, it's fine. No matter how much they like you, there'll come a point where that'll have to stop. Have you found that you're missing out on opportunities as well? Because that's something that is the point where you think, right, actually, I could have had that. I could have gone after that, but I don't have capacity. Or I didn't have the time to put into that proposal that meant that it didn't actually run as well as it actually could have done. Or I didn't have time to meet that client until it was too late. So when you start to see those opportunities dropping, which then leads into, does that mean that you're losing out on money? Or are you having to recompense clients and customers for things not having been done right, or having to drop your prices because things aren't working as well, issuing refunds, that kind of thing? Because what all those things do is just add to that sense of stress and burnout, which is the point where you are literally at your capacity. If you've answered yes to, I would say, kind of 2 or 3 of those, if you've answered yes to all 5, then you definitely probably need to have a chat with somebody about that. Because the first stage as well is, and this is where certainly solopreneurs tend to go with this, is that outsourcing. And we are really, really lucky in this day and age because there are so many different things that we can, in fact, outsource, so many different areas that we can go to get that support. But there comes a point where you actually can't continue to outsource. You need to bring somebody in who is there all the time. It doesn't have to be full-time, can be part-time hours, but someone who can come in and take some of that pressure and some of that stress off you. And then once you've identified that, yes, this is a leap that you want to make, then again, this is where we kind of, what tends to happen is people will sit down and they'll write a list of all the jobs that they want someone to do. And in the nicest possible way, those jobs are quite often all the crappy things. So who is going to want to come and work for you and go through this? Here's a list of all the crappy stuff that I don't want to do, or not necessarily don't want to do, but don't have the time to do. Because it's all those bits that just take up your time when you could be out there talking to clients, actually delivering all of those things. So what you really, really need to focus on is what skills are you missing in your business? So focus on the actual skill rather than the task or those things. And an easy way to do that, I say easy, it's really scary at first, is actually write down every single thing that needs to happen in your business for you to deliver an exceptional service or product to your customer. Now, that will be a really bloody long list. And that's when you sit there and go, no wonder I'm so knackered. Because you realise this whole pile of stuff that you've got to do. And you've got to include, don't just include the kind of the bits that you like and the bits that are the main drive and focus for what the customer gets, but absolutely everything. What about all the sales and marketing that needs to happen? What about all the finance and the accounting and the back office things? All the sales, all the networking, all the marketing, all of those, all sitting there and spending 8 hours on your SEO because at this point you kind of don't feel like you can afford to pay for someone, but hopefully you've outsourced that early on. But it's that part of, having that opportunity to sit down and say, right, what is every single step and stage that has to happen for my customer to be delighted? And think about, as I say, all those different elements of that. And it will be a long list. And then the next thing that you actually want to do is look at what skills do you need to deliver that. So for each task, what are the key skills that you actually need? Okay. And so that will be things. So if you're dealing with a frustrated customer, because if you're at this point, there might be a point where you're getting a few of those. So if you're dealing with a frustrated customer, you're going to need good communication skills. You're going to need to be able to manage that conversation. You're going to need to be able to listen to that customer. You're going to need to be able to understand what it is that is their problem. You're going to have to help sort of bring them down, calm them down, find out what the problem is, and actually help create a solution that keeps both you and your business and that customer happy. You've got to be adaptable. You've got to be able to listen to what they're saying. You've got to be able to sit there and go, actually, do you know what? Yeah, you're right. We have screwed up here. And have the humility to be able to admit to that. And you also have to make a decision. You've got to make a decision about, is the solution that I'm offering you going to add value to you, going to add value to me? Is it going to set a precedent that I don't necessarily want to continue to keep with this client? Am I potentially making a rod for my own back that's going to make things more difficult working forward? But it's about focusing on those skills. And then what you need to do is actually group those skills together. Because what you're looking at then is, what are the skills that are needed in my business? And they may be slightly different in some businesses. The kind of core ones, those core soft skills, are going to be the same. Some of the technical skills might be different. What you then want to do is, when you've got those skills, is make a note of what level would you like them to be at in your business. Now, being honest with yourself, as much as most of us are perfectionists when we run our own business, because we all want to do everything absolutely perfectly, it's not always possible. You do not necessarily need all of your skill set level to be at a 10. Some of them, it might be okay for them to be at an 8. Some of them might be a 4. If I was thinking, again, I'm thinking about SEO because I've been in 2 rooms with Kelly this morning. If I'm thinking about SEO, it doesn't matter if my SEO skills personally are at a 4. Probably at a 2. But within my business, what's important is that they probably need to be at least maybe about a 6 or a 7. Or if I'm outsourcing it, again, it doesn't matter. But if I'm bringing that in-house, those skills are going to need to be at least a 7, because you're not going to expect necessarily in those early days to have SEO professional level within your business. You also then need to, so you've got that, you've got your scores of where you want them to be. And actually what you want to do now is score them where they actually are. Now, this is not about your, it's partly because if it's only you, if you've got a team already, it's kind of more balanced, but it can feel quite tough if you're doing this and it's just about you. But it's not necessarily about where you are personally. It is about, where is your business? From the outside, what level of these skills are your customers seeing? Because that's the gap that you've got to fill. Oh, I do love a radar graph. I absolutely adore these things. And I think for something like this, they're so valuable to be able to actually identify really clearly and really quickly where your gaps are, because that's what you're recruiting to fill. You're recruiting to fill your skills gaps. So you know, when you get to the next stage, which is how do you actually find that person, you know exactly what it is that you're looking for. And what you're doing by focusing on the skills is you're not narrowing down the people who are in your potential pool. Because what we do is, if we look at it from a task perspective, is we're going, right, I want someone who's done these tasks before. Actually, it doesn't matter. It's always, from years and years and years and years ago, is you recruit for attitude and you train for skills. If someone's got the right attitude, you can train them to do pretty much everything. You can't necessarily train them to be a brain surgeon, but let's face it, you'd want to do that anyway. But it's that gap. That is the gap. So to keep your pool of candidates as wide open as possible, focus on what skills you need. Hopefully, James, I can't see him, but hopefully James is nodding away to this part. If he's not, I'm sure he'll tell me afterwards. Okay. So once you've identified those skills, what you need to think about is that actual recruitment market, because it is still tough. And it's going to stay tough for a while. Yes, some bigger organisations are making redundancies at the moment. And they are, the back in the days when we go, oh, you've been made redundant, clearly you're not very good. That's not the case. They are making people redundant from across the board. It doesn't actually, it's not a definition of that person. It's just unfortunately the way that business has been. But candidates' expectations are massive. They want much more flexibility. They want much more adaptability. They want more from their job. They want purpose. And I've got a slide in a second, which I'll talk very briefly about different generations. Money's not that important for the generations. There's a lot of millennials in this room. There's a couple of Gen Xers as well. But it's less important for those generations coming through, the money. I'm not sure how they'll feel about that if we go to a real full deep recession and money is harder to come by, but it's not everything. They really, really will not trade their values for money. at this point. But if you are in a small business, you've really got to be selling the benefits. What are they going to get by working for you? Now, for me, I always think working in small business is amazing because you get so many opportunities to do so much stuff. You get to be part and parcel of everything that is happening. You get to drive the culture. You get to interact with the clients. You get to do a bit of everything, which doesn't necessarily appeal to everybody. And it's really important to weed those things out at your interview stages as well. So it's not a brilliant slide, but basically what it's talking about is, you might be able to see it better than I can actually, is the different elements of those different generations that we're looking at. And I'm happy to send everyone these slides because they're different. Every generation is slightly different. And at the moment, we've got, Hilary, remember on Saturday, we had a great talk from a woman who was talking about how you manage those generations in a workplace. And if you're bringing somebody new on board, it is critical that you understand what their drivers are, that you understand. So when you are recruiting, be thinking about which generation do you want them from? Because actually, do you want a digital native? Do you want someone who is so embedded in technology and communication that way? But also there are the challenges that come with that. You do find that people of kind of that generation, sometimes they don't like talking to people because they do it all via text or chat box or those kind of things. So be aware of the different things that you might have to upskill them in that you may take for granted because of the way that you work and the processes that you go through as well. They're driven by different things. They are I think they worked out, was it by 2035, Gen Y will be the biggest proportion of the population in the workplace because of the birth rates. So they're going to be making those big decisions soon. But it's our responsibility to make sure that they get the best experience and the best opportunities to actually understand and how to thrive within businesses as well. And that's where as potential future employers, that is where your part comes in. It's actually making sure that they get this best experience by understanding what drives them. And it can be frustrating when it's something different to what drives you. But spending time actually looking at that and having those conversations about the differences is really important as well, because once you understand that, mismatched expectations, miscommunication, and poor relationships are the three biggest drivers of problems in any organisation. So if you can avoid those, that's a massive, massive start. Once you've worked all that out, then it's the preparing to interview. And again, I'm sure James will back me up. This is the thing that people don't think about enough. It is really, really important to understand the skills that you're looking for. Using competency questions is a really, really good, simple, consistent way of being able to measure like for like. If you're interviewing 3 or 4 people, what you want to be able to do is compare them based on their skills and experience, not on that emotion of, oh, I really like them. And it's important that you like them. You've got to like them, although Lee's probably looking at me going, you don't actually, Helen. You've got to be able to work with them. But that's not the be all and end all. You've got to make sure, you've got to go back to remembering what are the skills that I'm looking for. And a fantastic way of doing that, even better than competency skills for me, is use a genuine business problem that you've got and actually talk through that problem, ask them how they solve that problem, because what that will give you the opportunity to do.
Hello, Elite for Safety, Harold speaking.
Oh.
Turn your mic off, Harold.
Having that ability to talk through that problem and to understand how their brain processes things, what was important to them, the things that they spot, the things that they don't spot, the different perspectives that they're bringing can be really, really powerful, because you're not looking for culture fit necessarily, you're looking for culture add. You are looking for someone who will bring the things that you're missing, and they will add additional value and strength to your organisation. So yeah, culture fit is great because it's nice when everyone gets on, but you want culture add. You want them to bring a difference and the different things to what you're missing there. And I just realised I think I'd barely paused for breath. Lots of packing. Sorry, that was nearly 20 minutes. Apologies for that. But that's any questions.
Do you know what, mate? That was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So you're gonna...
Yeah, I'm just gonna stop recording.